Anyone, anything, I'm happy to answer. Yes?
I just wondered if you've given a lot of thought to the fact that you're leaving your home country to come here to Canada, because we kind of have seamless borders, so some of us may not be sort of in that thought process of you're actually going to leave home to come and make your new home here. And if you've given much thought to that, because now you're embracing a new family.
Yes.
And having said that, feel free to sit in that question.
I think Helen can attest to, I have given this a lot of thought. Truthfully, because why would I say anything other than the truth?
Just be different.
Yes, I've given it a great deal of thought. Just a little bit of background. I've already, like in my mind it's a done deal. My stepping into ministry, whatever that means, is a done deal. Now I'm not saying that that's specifically here. If this does not work out for me to be your spiritual director, I honor that. What I do know is that wherever I go is the perfect place. So, I've lived in Los Angeles for 11 years. I lived in New York City for 3 years prior to that. Then you're all going to start getting a sense of actually how old I really am. And I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. So yeah, I have given a great deal of thought to the fact that, yes, I am moving to another country, potentially. And I'm fine with that. My ministry calls to me. Ministry calls to me to be wherever I need to be the best minister I can be. I have made a decision in my life that if I continue in the capacity of a staff minister or an assistant minister, it will be with the center I am with now. That the only reason I will leave that type of assignment is to be a pastor or to be a spiritual director. We use pastor at my center, so forgive me if that's, because I've gotten a lot of that this week, that, pastor, what does that mean? Like, really, you use pastor? Yes, we do use pastor, so it's going to be a habit to be broken to say spiritual director, which is fine. I embrace that. Does that answer your question? Great. Yes?
What does it look like, or describe what it looks like to you, your idea of what it means to be, I think you said, the best minister you could be? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Can't hear the question.
I'll repeat the question, I promise.
Could you just sort of, what would that look like to you? What would we see in terms of your idea of what is the best minister you could be?
Alright, so the question is, what is my idea of the best minister I can be, since I did use that phrase? Thank you for the question. The best minister I can be is to be a face of truth. That I live my life to the highest degree that I can, and that I am a leader by example. Again, I go back to, I'm not here to change anybody's mind. I'm here to encourage you to take a look at what's going on in your life and changing your own mind if that works for you. My life is a life lived in principle, from a decision that I've made to follow this teaching, and to make this teaching the core of how I approach everything. From that heart-centered place, to know that the human and the divine are one thing. And I will constantly strive to bring that to everything that I do. And from that place, encourage you all to do the same in exactly the way that works for you. Does that answer your question?
It does to some degree. I guess I'm looking for practicality.
You want to know what the center is going to look like?
I sort of want to, see, I don't know you, I've not spent time with you, I'm getting to know you on stage, I spoke to you a little bit last week, but I'm not in your presence to really see who you really are. So I guess I'm trying to get an idea of if I was, if I saw you in action, what would that look like? Like, how involved are you with the membership, or like just some examples of what that looks like in terms of your ministry?
I testify. I'm with
So from a practical standpoint, I come from a center that is very, very involved and active in community outreach. We have a very strong practitioner program, so that we have very specific roles for the practitioners. We come from this idea that service, to be of service in all areas of our life, is the highest calling. And so in that regard, we're putting ourselves out into the community at the same time that we're coming and being spiritually nourished on a Sunday. The other thing that does for me is that education, teaching this principle and doing accredited courses is one of my top priorities. Because it's great to come here and be inspired on a Sunday. It is great to come here and feel good and walk out those doors and say, gosh, I feel really, really great. And you walk down the street and then you start seeing the relative world, and it starts bringing you down a little bit. What classes do, classes is where the rubber hits the road. Classes is where you learn to really embody this principle, and where you really learn how to make it the experience of your life. So I'm very, very, very interested in classes. Practicality as well. Here we are. You know, I love Sunday service. I love, love, love Sunday service. And I have a vision for this center. I have a vision for setting up the center in a little way, which the board is aware of, to make it a better experience for everybody who walks through those doors, to make sure that nobody feels as though they are an outsider, to make sure that nobody feels as though they don't belong. Because everybody belongs. You know why? Because we are all one. We all exist in this experience together. And yes, I'm the one who's up here espousing, wisdom. But that wisdom resides within each and every person here. That wisdom is part of who you are. And so I encourage you to open up the channels of intuition and let that wisdom flow. How's that? Great. Yes.
I talked to a couple of members of the board, and what's been interesting is that it really feels to me that Barbara really stewarded wonderfully, and that when she left it was the right time. For her and for us, there's been, in my estimation, an explosion of creativity happening in this place, which I love. And it was mentioned to me that there was going to be space provided for people to get up and, we'd have our own people plus other people coming in on Sundays, that the minister would be a focus holder, plus a teacher, plus, but also that there'd be space. And I really have had a sense that that's been a great thing happening here, the way folks have been stepping up in a lot of different ways here. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see that continue. Are you in alignment with that?
I am, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I don't know why I feel the need to get up every time. Maybe it's because I still feel like I'm in school, maybe. I don't know. I just wanted to tell you personally that since it's the first time I'm meeting you, and I thought I would feel guilty for not having witnessed you beforehand, in the amount of time it took for the board to be taken by your candidacy. I wanted to firsthand tell you that I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
In a pleasant way. With pleasant being the key word, by the way, because I think I'm a strong believer in first impressions. The purpose, the way how I discovered this center is really magical. Through a friend, didn't have any clue what I'm expecting, This friend of mine is so dear to me that, a lot of things that we have shared over our lives as friends have been magical in just the way that she shares of her lifestyle and what matters to her and just how they seem to matter to me. And hopefully I don't get sidetracked by my talkative ways now, but I had a specific point in mind right now about how you talked. I mean, basically, I've renounced religions because I don't believe in what's popularly probably known as man-made religions. And I'm glad that you spoke about how I feel in some ways that at least I grew into something bigger than what religions offer. Something that really is is what comes along in times of growth for us individuals, because we are that one race, as you mentioned as well. So what brings us here, as you mentioned, is that it's a place where we can feel we all belong. And when you mentioned, I'm glad that you mentioned you are making an effort to forego some terms that you are maybe familiar with from where you come from, such as pastor. And I had a slight discomfort with the word God when you were mentioning that in your chosen, process of what you were presenting for us today. And not that I am going to be telling you how to do things. I'm glad that you'll be, I'm very confident in the way you'll be administering your ministry and how strong you are about those ideals. And I'm glad that you're getting us on board on how you feel the only job that you have is to help us on how to think, but not necessarily what to think. I'm very trusting of that statement, which is the key thing for me and what brings me here and what makes me comfortable. And every time I come, I go away with something new and learn and grow. So I wondered if you can give a synonym or have that in mind in terms of going forward. Maybe a word like the divine rather than the God would be definitely helpful to me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We've gone through at the center where I come from, we went through a real shift in terms of reclaiming the word God. Early on in my spiritual director's ministry, see, I caught myself, I was going to say pastor. Early on in his ministry, he had a lot of pushback from the membership of the church, of the center.
Don't censor yourself on our...
Yeah, don't censor yourself.
I'm not censoring myself. You know what? It's just it's simply
That's what it is.
it's simply redirecting my mind, and I have to do it too. Let's be clear. I have my own hang-ups around the word God, and maybe I haven't worked through all of those things yet myself. So I totally get and I totally respect where you're coming from. It has been a conscious choice on my part to go to that deeper understanding to reclaim the word God. I don't recognize God as something outside of myself. I recognize God as exactly who I am. God is right here where I am. God is right there where you are. So if I say God, in your mind too, and this goes for everyone here, just put in the word that works for you. Put in the word that works for you. There are people who call that thing, the thing itself, the beloved. There are people who call it Fred. Fred. This is my friend Fred, who, it turns out, we've had an acquaintance for several years, and we actually met in person for the first time last August, and then all of a sudden here I am. So, whatever works for you. And I am cognizant, and I am aware when I say God, I'm saying the word God. And I don't always use it. I do use the divine. I try and mix it up.
I'm definitely with you when you're using it, what it means and what it represents. It's just, I don't know, I thought, I have a very musical ear, and I guess I'm being lazy and I want some comfort in having things be concise.
Great. It has been over 10 minutes, so I just want to make sure that...
One more. 7 winters in LA, you really want to come?
Not 7, 11.
I love it. All that even worse.
I did live in New York City for 3 years, so I'm aware of what it may be like. I still have all of my good stuff.
Came at the right time.